All right, hello everybody. I'm Kristen Susko, the Program Manager for Professional Development for the S&T Policy Fellows. So before we get started, I just want to go over a few items so that you know how to participate in today's webinar. You're currently listening in using your computer speaker system by default, but if you want to prefer to listen in over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time, and we'll address them during the Q&A portions of the webinar. I would now like to introduce Candace Bertotti, who will be leading today's webinar on mastering productivity. Many of you will remember meeting Candace at her in-person workshops to the fellows last fall on crucial conversations and negotiations, and she's now run 2 other webinars this past month for the fellows on unconscious bias and crisis communication. Candace is the founder of Candid Communications and specializes in interpersonal communication, influence, and conflict resolution to help individuals and organizations achieve better results. Candace previously served at the Department of Education and on the faculty of the University of Maryland. She currently teaches at Georgetown Law School and has been teaching on crisis communication to government officials for over 10 years. She holds a master's degree in public administration from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. I'll now turn it over to you, Candace.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to see that there are so many of you here on the call today. And I know that it's a Friday, so I really want to honor that you are here. Today's session is on mastering productivity. And last night, I was applying some of the skills I'm going to teach you today, and I was thinking about what 3 things do I want to accomplish today. And my number 1 was I want to deliver a massively helpful and engaging webinar. So that is my goal, to deliver a massively helpful and engaging webinar. So with that, I'm going to dive in. One thing that you probably already know without me telling you is that things often expand to the space that you give them. And so I want to make this so productive that my goal is to finish before the end time and actually get us out a few minutes early. I want to give you your money's worth, but I also want to show that we can teach something in an efficient way. So we're going to have some fun. I'm going to, as you see here, talk about all sorts. Whoops, and there we go. I'm going to show you some research from lots of different books. This is a personal passion of mine to find out how to be more productive, and I think we're drawn to teach that which we most need to learn personally. And so this is something I've struggled with, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my personal calling to this in a moment. But I'm going to pull from lots of different books. And so this is going to be more, though, than just me summarizing what are some gems from the different books so that you don't have to read them all. It's also tailoring it to how can we apply this specifically as PhD scientists working in the federal government, and how can we make this a unique session. So I really want you to participate, send questions. I'm going to have lots of polls that come through and several exercises. So let's have some fun together as we go forward. So what I'd like to first identify is what is your biggest challenge to productivity? And so I'm going to start up our poll here, and I'd like you to answer what your biggest challenge to productivity is. Let's go ahead and submit which one is hardest for you. Is it procrastination? Is it there's just no time to actually get on top of everything to actually plan better? Is it just hard to say no to things? Is it distractions, interruptions? I'm sure it's many other things as well. Maybe just another moment to go ahead and vote. And I'm going to close the poll here and share the results. All right, so we've got some procrastinators in the group. All right, you're with good company here. No time to actually planning on top of everything is less of the issue. So it's mostly distractions, interruptions, and procrastination, which is fabulous because I'm going to give you some tips for both of those. Great, so that helps me to go. So I'm going to hide those over there and bring us back over here. So how are we defining productivity? So I'm going to talk about a few of those particular books. One is by Chris Bailey. He did the productivity challenge, and he defines it as how much you can accomplish. And he also talks about it, the better management of energy, time, and attention. We often think of productivity as just time, and this is really energy, time, and attention. So I can create more time, but if I don't have my focus in the right place, it's not really worth much. if my energy is really low, I'm not going to be very productive. So he really thinks about all three of those, and I'll be referencing all three as we go. It's really like this gap from knowing to doing. We often know what we should do, but we don't do it. And another way of looking at it, as another author said, it's the best uses of our energy. Oh, goodness. The best uses of our energy, intelligence, is time as we try to seize the most meaningful rewards with the least wasted effort. So what I want to do is give you a little background about why I am personally drawn to productivity and why this is something that is really a passion for me. And I'm just going to go back in time a little bit. So bear with me, but I'll bring it all together. So I grew up in a really tiny town. It was about 200 people. This is a picture of where I lived. It was called Yorkville, Indiana. And there, as you can see, this is about a 2-mile stretch, and our house was right there. And there's no schools or streetlights or post office, or much of anything. And that little access road that goes up the back of the house, that is about 1/4 of a mile, and it's hard to see here, but it's pretty much straight up. It's this really steep access road that got to our house. And one of the unique things about living in a rural community is we didn't have any water. We didn't have city water or a well. We dug many times and could never find water. So we had to have water shipped in via a truck and stored in these containers outside. And when that driveway wasn't perfectly clean in the wintertime with snow, the truck wouldn't deliver water. And we would go long periods of time without any water. And one year we went all the way from January to March, with the only way of accessing our house was hiking. So we couldn't even access the road. And so we also didn't have water. And so I learned at a very young age that you have to be very connected and dependent on your community. And so I really learned about the power of connections, and you need each other. And it's not just knowing your neighbor, always being in a hurry and driving by them. That's not going to have them help you shovel your driveway for 6 hours. It's really getting to know each other and being present. And so I started off at a young age with those values of community and being present. But then we moved. And this is where we moved to. So when I was in middle school, we moved to Boca Raton, Florida. It was quite a culture shock. And I quickly learned that you could get made fun of for what you wore, and that there was a lot less connection, even though there were a lot more people. And one of the coping mechanisms that I came up with was being really productive, because at lunchtime, if I didn't have anybody to sit with, that was really hard to deal with. And so I became really, really busy and really involved in extracurriculars. And if I had to go run to talk to this teacher and get the sign off from the principal on this and go and submit this application, then I didn't really notice that I didn't have any friends to sit with. And so I became really, really busy and really, really productive. And as I got older, I found that those came into conflict, and that wanting to be connected and really, really present often came into conflict with being busy. And I'm so driven, and I'm so driven by getting things done and goals, that I often would find that I couldn't be in the moment, because I have to clean, I have to do this, and I have to rehash this conversation on my head so I don't offend that person, and I've got to multitask here. And I would always tell myself that, oh, eventually I'll be ready for the moment. Eventually, I got to get all this stuff done, so I'll be ready for the moment. And what I was horrified to discover is that that often came at the expense of the moment. And I was very unaware, and I think many of us are unaware of some of the suffering and the distance and the lack of results we create when we rush through life and we miss the most important and precious thing that we have. And it really is just this moment right here. And one of the other things I was particularly guilty for was a phrase that sounded something like this: I don't have time for this. And it came in a few different forms. It came in the form of, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this. But it also came in the form of, I don't have time for this. And the irony is, what we resist and often don't have time for is often what we most need, want, and desire. And one that I can admit to is, I would say, oh, I don't have time to connect with you. I'm too busy being lonely. And of course, that's not what I said, but in a sense, that's what was going on. And so I became a scientist, so to speak, at how to marry these two of wanting to indeed be productive and get stuff done, but also having time to really connect with people. One thing I became really good at is multitasking. And so I became very good at doing lots of things at once, which I'm guessing as scientists starting a new fellowship for the last year, you have also had some experience with this. And so that brings me to my next goal, and that is right here. I'm good at multitasking. I'm just curious, do you think you're good at multitasking? Yes or no? Agree, disagree? All right, and I'm gonna close the poll and show the results. Okay, so 38% agree, 62% say disagree. Okay, and now my next question is, multitasking helps me be more productive. What do you think? You might not be good at it, but does it help you be more productive? Yes or no? All right, I've got most of my votes in. All right, so most of you, multitasking does not help you be productive, and you are much wiser than I, because for so many years, I was kidding myself, thinking that I was so good at multitasking and that it was really helping me be more productive. And so I want to do an exercise to drive this point home, and this is an exercise from The Myth of Multitasking by Dave Crenshaw, and he's probably one of the lesser known authors that I showed earlier, but I find some of his stuff is really powerful. He does business fables where he does a fictional story to get across business principles, and that's indeed his book of The Myth of Multitasking. This is one of the exercises that he does in his talks, and that's also in that book. And I would like you to find a blank piece of paper, and I'd like you to place it so it's across, so it's the long way goes across instead of from top to bottom. And I'd like you to write at the top of the page, switch tasking robs productivity. So just write that at the top of the page. I'll give you a moment to do that. I'll do it with you so I get a sense of timing here. All right, so at the top, the switch tasking robs productivity. And now across the long width of the page, I'd like you to add a box under the statement that looks like this. So go all the way across the page, all the way across the long way. So basically you have two rows. I'll give you a sense of that. All right, and now what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you write one letter from this statement, like the S here, the switch, and then one number underneath it. And then the next letter and another number. And then the next letter and then another number. So you're just gonna go through, and by the end of this, you'll have switch tasking robs productivity over the top with the numbers on the bottom. But I want you to switch in between. Are there any questions about what I'm asking you to do? So you're gonna do one letter, one number, one letter, one number, one letter, one number, all the way across. And what I'd like you to do, before you don't start just yet, I'm gonna time you. And so I have a timer here set up. And I just want you to look up when you're done and notice how long it took you, okay? All right, so on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Go. Again, check your time when you're finished and just write how long it took you. Notice any mistakes you might have made. I know I ended up having a couple numbers in the top column. I skipped a couple numbers. I made a few mistakes. All right, I'm going to stop the time there. All right, so now I'm going to stop it and reset it. And now go back here. All right, and now we're going to do this again, but a little bit differently. This time, I want you to create another box underneath that goes all the way across the page. Same sort of box, blank again, all the way across the page, same page. Give you a second to write that. And now you're going to, excuse me, I'm going to so now you're going to write the whole word, the whole phrase across the top. And then once you're done writing switch tasking robs productivity across the top, then you're going to write the numbers, I believe it's 1 through 28, all the way across the bottom. So first all the letters, then all the numbers, and we're going to do this together. Any questions? Looking in the question box. Okay, I'm going to time you, and this time I want you to time and notice how long it takes you, and notice if you see a difference. All right, so you're writing switch tasking robs productivity across the top. When you're done, then write 1 through 28 along the bottom. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And again, check the time when you're done. And I'd like you to notice the difference between the second round and the first round. And I want you to subtract those two numbers and calculate how many seconds did you save in the second round. And I would like you to put it in the question box. Just type it up in there so we can all see. How many seconds did you save in the second exercise? So you're subtracting the second one from the first one. I'm assuming you did it faster the second time. Okay, 32. Emily did it 32 seconds faster. 31, 25, 27, 10, 34. And so this is just one simple task that's demonstrating switch tasking. And switch tasking is when we switch back from one task to another. We're switching back from the S to the 1, the W to the 2, versus focusing on writing one phrase and then writing all the numbers. And you can see that just in this one simple task, we all saved about a half a minute. And if you think about all the times that we switch during the day, this is just a tiny little exercise. So when we're switching from our email to a phone call, back to our email, to surfing the internet, back to our email, that every time we do that, it takes our brain a moment to think, okay, what was I just working on? Okay, well, who was I calling? Okay, who was I talking to? What was happening? And every moment that we do adds up. And if you think it's just, it just takes a few seconds each time, you add that up and you've got 30 extra minutes in your day when you're not switch tasking, depending on how often that you do this. So to me, this exercise is really eye-opening because I would claim that I was so good at this, that I was just a master multitasking and that I was efficient. And the scary thing is that your brain actually gives you feedback that multitasking is good. Your brain likes to be stimulated. Your brain likes to work on lots of things at once. And so you get this weird feedback loop that tells yourself that multitasking is good for you when it's actually not. And so one key takeaway is to do one thing at a time and to really focus on a single item. So hard to do, but so important. And so we want to think about the interruptions that happen in our day, and that a lot of that we have control over. One thing I've been starting to do is taking my Wi-Fi off my phone or my Wi-Fi off my computer when I need to focus on a certain task so that emails won't come in and surprise me, but we want to try to focus on one thing at a time. So I want to introduce you also to another idea connected to this, and it is something from David Allen. And David Allen is the author of Getting Things Done, and his book is kind of the Bible for everyone in the productivity field. And his book has been around for years. It's referenced in a lot of the other books. I find it's kind of a dry read, but it is powerful. In disclosure, I'm getting certified to be a Getting Things Done instructor at the end of this month, so I'm kind of excited about that. But his big thing is your mind is not for having ideas. Your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. And we often hold so much in our brain. And so I want to have you engage in one of the exercises from Getting Things Done, and that is to do a mind sweep. And what I'm going to have you do is, again, get another blank sheet of paper out. If you could grab another blank sheet of paper. And I want you to think of everything that has your attention. And that could be, you need to pick certain kids up from school after work. It could be emails you need to send. It might be you need to buy a dress for a wedding that's coming up. It might be somebody's birthday. It could be anything that has your attention. And I want you to put one per line. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and this is just to sweep your brain and get it out of your head where you can't do anything with it, and it's really taxing your brain and getting it down on a page. So I'm just going to give you a minute to do this. Ideally, you'd want to give yourself some more time to do this, but I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this. So grab your pen. We're going to do a mind sweep. All right, when you're ready, go. I'm actually going to give you 1 more minute. So take 1 more minute, and what else has your attention? Add to your list. Really get it out of your brain. Anything you need to buy, any chores you need to do, any people you know that are going to come visit, tasks at work, chores at home, things that you've been putting off, nice deeds you want to do for people, drawers you need to clean out, your car needs washing. Add to your list. All right, time. So now what I want you to do is I want you to count up how many. So you wrote 1 on each line. Count up all the different tasks and write that number down. And if you feel comfortable, I'd love for you to share. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm curious how many things people had on their list. And then what I'd like you to do is pick one from that list that's been on your mind the longest. Find one, like maybe clean out your closet and it's been on your list for 10 years. Or get in shape, and that's been on your list for 12 years. What's been on that list the longest, on your mind the longest? And that I would like for you to share. So I'd like you to share on the list how many years, do by years, how many years has something been on your mind? Type years after it so we know it's different from the how many things on your list. Okay, Get in Shape was yours for 3 years. Thank you for your honesty. Kyle, yours has been on your mind for 6 months. Okay, got it. 5 years. 7 years finished scrapbooking. Thanks, Melissa. Purge file drawers, 3 years. 5 years of paper. Yeah, and so I think our award for most constipated psyche goes to Melissa, if there were such an award. Yeah, and those things take up space in our brains. Now, I'm curious, after doing this exercise, do you feel more grief or relief? I'd just like you to type in the box which one you might be feeling now after getting some of this just down on paper. More grief or relief? Relief? Glad you're proud, Melissa. Some relief, grief. Yeah, it kind of goes neither one. Relief. Yeah, it kind of goes either way. So some people say they really feel relief because it does get it out of their brain, and at least they can now see it and do something with it. And some people feel grief because like, okay, now that I see all this, what do I do with it? And also, if you were really doing this, it might take several hours to really dump everything out. And so there might be still some in there, and it's the frustration of not getting it all out. Point is, you want to get things out of your head and into an area that you trust, into a place that you trust that is not in your head, where it's not efficient, it's not what it's designed for. And so this is a quote that I just think it underscores the science in my screen there. A task left undone remains undone in 2 places. So it's at the actual location of the task and inside your head. Incomplete tasks in your head consume the energy of your attention as they gnaw at your conscience. And so we want to get it out of our head. All right, so I want you to think about the gathering points. So this is something from Dave Crenshaw that he talks about all the places where we gather information. And so I want you to think about, where do you gather unprocessed items, and do a little inventory of your situation. And so I want you to list all of them. And so this is anywhere you have unprocessed ideas. It could be, so think about unprocessed ideas. You might have those on your computer. You might have them in an inbox. Any to-do list, assignments, everything you see on the screen. But it's also places, like it could be the passenger seat of your car is a place that gathers unprocessed information. Think about right when you first walk in your apartment or your home. Is there a shelf that has unprocessed mail? Think about when you walk into your room. Is there like a little junk bowl that has stuff that you don't know what to do with? Do you have a to-file pile on your desk? Anywhere you have unprocessed information, I want you to write it down. Thank you for letting me know that you can't see what other people are typing. I don't know if the folks on the AAS end are able to show what people are typing, but I will try to repeat that. Thank you. So think if you could add any more to your list. I will tell you that Dave Crenshaw says that when he does this, the average amount of gathering points he finds is 30 to 40. So if you're just writing down a few, be really honest with yourself, because Facebook is a gathering point. Your text messaging is a gathering point. There's unprocessed text you probably need to reply to. If you have several email accounts, I want you to count each one. If you have more than one voicemail, I want you to count each one. If you have an inbox at home and at work, I want you to count each one. So write all those down and count them up. He said the least he ever found of anyone in his entire career was 12. So we often have lots and lots of gathering points. The challenge is that the more gathering points we have, the more switch tasking that we're doing. We're switching back from this one email account to another. We're switching from, oh wait, did I leave that in the front seat of my car? Did I leave that in my folder in my briefcase? Did I leave that in my purse? And maybe some of you have several purses, and each one of those purses counts as one. Your wallet, your suitcase, all those different places, those gathering points cause us to switch. And the idea is, can we reduce it to 6? And so he suggests that these should be your 6 gathering points. Can anyone guess what one of them might be? Any guesses? Anywhere there is a tab, too many mistakes. Yeah. All right, well, I'll show you what the 6 are. So a physical inbox. One thing he says is, if you can, a lot of questions he gets is about, do I need to have like separate personal and separate for work? So do I need to have separate email for work? And he says when you can, it's best to marry the two. That works best for people who work from home, so that's not so realistic if you're actually going into an office. But if you can have, for example, one email place that you go that forwards everything into one place, then that's just one place you go to check. Now, I know that's not really realistic for everybody, but that's something to think about, and that's a question I thought might come up. So a physical inbox where you physically put things, and he recommends having it pretty big so that it's not overflowing. Having a portable inbox, so that might be on your smartphone, that you keep that around and you put things in your smartphone. You type in notes. It might be a notepad. I know David Allen walks around with a notepad. He captures everything down on that notepad. So something that's portable. A notepad in addition, digital or paper, so you could have that as well. One email inbox, one voicemail, and then a wild card. And that could be text messaging, Facebook, your to-do list, and that's it. And can you get everything into those 6 gathering points? I found this really, really helpful because I had gathering points all over the place, and so much of my time was, where's this, where's that, oh my gosh, I need to finish up this, I have a few precious 10 minutes to get work done on, Friday when I got home early before work closes, and I need to call on my healthcare issue, but now I can't find the bill to call, and where did I put that? And so those 10 minutes get lost, and then by the time I find it, it's after 5 and they've already closed, and so how can I get some really clear gathering places so my mind doesn't have to work at it? I just look at my gathering points. The quote from Chris Bailey says, busyness is not different from laziness when it doesn't lead you to accomplish anything. And so that's kind of referring to what I was saying before. You can be really busy, a busy body, but it doesn't really help if you're not getting things done. So this is something that I've implemented. I find it really helpful. It's from J.D. Meyer. It's Getting Results the Agile Way. And he says that at the beginning of the day, you should ask yourself, when the day is over, what 3 things will I want to have accomplished? Pretty simple. It doesn't take a long time. It's really centering. It's grounding. Marie Forleo, if anybody follows her, she's a business consultant. She recommends doing this the night before, because then you can get a better sense of how early you need to go to bed, and you can plan. I find the hardest thing about waking up early is not waking up early, it's did I go to bed on time? So doing this, the earlier you can do this, the better. He recommends doing this both when the day is over and when the week is over. So can you do it at the beginning of the week and the beginning of each day? And then focus on just those 3 things when you're doing your day. Now, a couple tips that he gives is you want to think in terms of wins, achievements, or highlights. So if you can't think of like what 3 things do I want to accomplish, you can think, well, is there some milestone I want to get to that would be a win? Is there some big achievement that I'm trying to capture, or is there like something I want to be able to look back on as a highlight? So just think about wins, achievements, and highlights. And then I really like this: set 2 alarms during your day, and when that alarm goes off, it's a reminder am I doing my 3 daily goals? Do I even remember them? Am I on track? Do I remember what my weekly goals are? Am I on track? Because it's so easy to get swept up in the moment. And before I know it, I've been shopping online for an hour and I need to get back. All right. So Tony Robbins is also a big guru of mine. I don't like that word, guru, but someone that I've gotten a lot from. And some people have strong views of him. If you don't know who that is, some people call him a motivational speaker. He used to have infomercials years ago. He runs workshops called Unleashing the Power Within or Date with Destiny. And he has got a lot of videos on YouTube as well. He's consulted presidents and athletes and all sorts of people. His big thing is stop focusing on what you're supposed to do. Throw that out the window. Throw your to-do list out the window. Stop focusing on what to do. And he likes to say that what controls our focus controls our life, and he's right. What we focus on absolutely controls us. And that where focus goes, energy flows. And I try to have that as my mantra, to really think about, oh my gosh, I'm ruminating about this negative thing, and that's where my energy's going. So how do you get out of focusing on what to do? So he gives 3 things that you should do, which are pretty simple and I think also quite helpful. Starting with your outcome. What do you really want? What do you want as your result? And start with that always. What do you want? And it goes back to what we were just talking about. What 3 things do you want out of your day? What do you want to accomplish? What's the outcome? He applies this to everything. So for example, he says if he's going to call his dad, before he gets on the call, he thinks, what do I want out? What is the outcome of this call? I want my dad to feel totally loved. I want to have a meaningful connection with him. And he says it's got to be specific, because if you just say, oh, I'm going to call so-and-so to catch up, well, is that really what you want? Do you just want to have caught up, or do you want to have that person feel like you really heard them? Do you want that person to feel like you care about them as a friend? And really getting present to that before the call really helps your focus, because otherwise it's really easy to multitask while I'm on the call, to try to do 2 things at once, and then that friend asks you that question and you weren't really listening, and then they feel it. So in everything, think first, what is my outcome? What do I want in this meeting? What do I want out of this interaction with my boss today? What do I want with this interaction with my coworker who keeps interrupting me? Second thing is then why? Why are we doing this? So what is the outcome I want? And then what's the purpose? What is the why behind it? What is the purpose? Because often we do things and we're not doing the right thing. So why do I want to do this? So really getting that here's the outcome, but why do I want that outcome? What is and the reason you do that is the motivation, because when it doesn't work out, when that outcome doesn't come, when the person doesn't call you back, when things don't go your way, do you have the juice to keep going? Do you have the energy to hang in there? And that why is what keeps you in there. And so you've got to have that motivation piece. Otherwise, I want to lose weight, or I want to exercise more. But if I don't have the why, I'm not going to do it. So sure, I want to do all these things this week, but I got to have the why. So be really clear on why you want what you want. What's that motivating piece behind it? Then create a massive action plan. So that's where you can come up with the steps, but only after you figured out your outcome and why you want that outcome. And I know it seems like sometimes it's like I don't have time to do all this, but I would say yes, this takes time, but the alternative takes longer. So there's a great video online. If you I believe if you can just Google Tony Robbins and productivity, he outlines this and tells some stories. He actually got a call from President Clinton, and President Clinton said, I'm going to be impeached tomorrow. What should I do? And basically, Tony Robbins takes him through these 3 things. Like, what do you really want? What's your outcome? Why are you doing this? And it's kind of interesting to hear his behind-the-scenes coaching of some people we've seen in the spotlight. This is just reiterating. This is another author, but same thing with Tony Robbins. Before you do anything, to answer, I deeply care about this because. So Chris Bailey, he wrote the Productivity Challenge, and he did all these really fun experiments. So for a year, he did everything he could to try to learn about productivity. And one of the experiments he did was try to wake up at 5:30 every morning. And it was by far his toughest experiment. He said he absolutely hated it. He would end up sleeping through the day because he was so tired from getting up at 5:30 in the morning. He would miss out on fun things with his friends. he was miserable. And then he realized that, why am I doing this? And he said he didn't care about it. And he also found in the research that it doesn't really matter if you're an early bird or you're a night owl. That has not so much impact. It does matter if you're well rested. But he realized he was just doing it because someone told him he should. And so he realized, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to try to get up at 5:30 in the morning. But I do think it's helpful to take from that this, I deeply care about this because. So if you're having trouble with a habit, whatever it might be, reading more in your field, staying up on the research in your area, meetings that you hate going to but you should go to, I deeply care about this because. And what would be your answer for that? And that can often give you that motivation and get you over that hump. This is a bonus point for anyone who can name what movie is this graphic from. Can anyone figure out what movie this is from? So there's autopilot there. Let's see if anyone. Oh, Lauren gets the high five. All right. And given that you did this, and you're going to love my latest joke, Lauren. So what did the nosy pepper do? He got jalapeno business. Huh. Okay. Anyhow, for my punsters who love airplanes, there is my pun for the day. And for those that might not recall, here's a broader view of this screen. The idea here is that many of us are on autopilot, and I know that I am often on autopilot, but it is in the name of productivity. Like, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to think about my goals for the day. I just got to jump into this fire pit and start swimming and do everything. And that is my biggest downfall. And so I really want to encourage people to not work on autopilot and take breaks. Easier said than done. So taking breaks, everything I read only helps us. Now, you've got to do it within reason. Let me give you some boundaries for that. So I'll come back to the slides. So one is from Francisco Carrillo, and that is work on one task for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, and then after 4 of those 25-minute periods, take a 15-minute break. What it does is it allows your brain to just take a moment and take a step back. And if you think about it, go back to this, the power of the shower, we sometimes get some of our best ideas in a place like the shower, but just not compare that. Do you ever get a brilliant idea while you're surfing the internet or while you're texting someone? You're probably, I'm guessing, less likely to get a brilliant idea because you're filling your brain up. And so when you can take breaks, like taking a shower or meditating or taking a walk or getting a massage or just going to get a drink of water, those things give your brain a chance to expand and really think beyond the confines that you're putting them through. So really justify taking breaks. I have been doing this 25-minute, 5-minute break, and I really love it. I used to just sit down and be like, okay, for the next 3 hours, I'm not going to get up. And then I would sit there, and after about 25 minutes, I would all of a sudden find that I'm on Amazon.com and I'm ordering things. So it wasn't very helpful. And then Amazon would lead to, oh, I forgot this person's birthday, and oh, I need to call them, and then before I know it, I'm on the phone. So I didn't get up out of my seat. I stayed there for 3 hours, but I didn't do what I needed to do. So I'm finding this 25-minute, 5-minute really, really helpful. Another thing you could do is track your biological prime time. They call this the BPT. And this is also, this came from Sam Carpenter, who worked the system. This chart is from Chris Bailey. And he tracked his energy, his focus, and his motivation. And as you can see here, at the bottom is the time. And so that was really helpful to him because he said now he knew where to do his most creative, mind-taxing things. And so between certain hours, he would say, okay, this is where I need to do that really tough work. More maintenance type things like cleaning or any kind of routine type thing where I don't really need my brain, then I'll do it where those energy dips are. So it can be helpful to know when you're most productive, when your energy, focus, and motivation are high. I do want to do a big shout out to sleep, food, and exercise. I know I've got scientists in the room, so you might appreciate there's a woman who's doing some really cool research now on emotions. She's a neuroscientist. Her name is Lisa Feldman, and her book's called How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain. And she does all this really complex research, and people come up to her after her talks, and they'll say, okay, how do I feel better? And she says, I'm sorry to give you the advice that your mother would probably give you, but all the science says you gotta sleep enough, eat well, and get exercise. And so it's from the top scientists. If you want to be more productive, one of the best things you can do is get enough sleep. I read a couple places where they said for every hour of sleep that you don't get, you lose 2 hours of productivity. For food, eating right, when you eat, what you eat, and include drink in that, and how much water can really help. And then exercise, getting up, getting physical activity. Our bodies are designed to walk 6 to 9 miles a day. Are we out there using our bodies how they were intended to be used? David Allen likes to say your ability to generate power is directly proportional to your ability to relax. I think that's so interesting because so I'm doing this thing called Year of Living Mindfully. And it's a year-long program that includes meditation and just being more intentional about how you live. And I'm getting so frustrated with it because it's just, we'll meet and we'll just like sit there and meditate. I'm thinking like, I could have been home and done so many things, and I'm just sitting here meditating. And I went up to the instructor and I expressed my frustration. He said, Candace, sometimes you need to slow down to go fast. And I was like, so that's a little bit of what he's talking about here. But if you think about martial arts, you think about a lot of martial arts incorporate meditation. And if you think about these people who are breaking boards in martial arts and doing these really incredible tasks, they're not always these super bulky, big people. It's often very slim, smaller statured people, and it's not about strength, it's about speed. And so I think that's interesting that they incorporate meditation, and it really can help. So I don't want you to discount that word has some triggers for people, but I will say, and so many of these books, chapters, whole sections. Chris Bailey, I did a whole section on meditation and how powerful it was for him and his experimental year. My recommendation is if you're going to do something like that, to start small. And what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to meditate 3 minutes a day. 3 minutes a day, that's all I'm going to do. And then when I would actually sit down for 3 minutes, I could sit down for longer, but it was just getting my butt in the seat. But if I told myself I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes, I don't have 30 minutes. But I do have 3 minutes. So I started with 3 minutes. I want to say a word about caffeine because I'm guessing that some of you might be caffeine addicts. And I really like this quote. It says, drinking caffeine is a way of borrowing energy from later in the day. And as scientists, I thought you might appreciate the science behind this. So caffeine prevents your brain from absorbing a chemical called adenosine, which tells your brain when it's tired. And so when you're drinking caffeine, your body doesn't absorb this chemical, so it doesn't know it's tired. But while it's blocking that chemical from your brain, it continues to build up and build up and build up. And so when that caffeine wears off, you get this flood of this tired chemical and you crash. And so that's what he means when he says it's borrowing energy from late in the day. So one of his recommendations is to drink green tea or matcha green tea because that crash is different. He talks about drinking strategically, but here's the rub. I know many of you are introverts, and what's unfortunate is for introverts, it almost always has a negative impact. And part of the sense behind that is that introverts are more affected by stimulus in their environment, and so it's too much and it throws us off. For extroverts, it can be quite helpful. So if you're an extrovert, be strategic about your drinking. Introverts, beware. All right, so I wanted to share one of the things that I really like to do with my colleagues, and that is we get together and we share life hacks. And it's particularly helpful if you do this with people that you have similar lifestyles. So if you have kids, people who also have kids your age, kids of your kids' age. With me, I like to do this with people who also travel and do speaking, and we share life hacks. It's really fun. So I'd love to hear any of your favorite apps or time-saving tips. I will share with you one of them. I don't know if you guys have Flux on your computer, but one of the things it shows is that when you're exposed to blue light at night, it keeps your mind awake, and then it's really hard to sleep, and then it's hard to be productive. Flux is an app. You just go on your computer and you download it. It's really simple, really quick, and when you tell it what time it is, it adjusts your screen brightness throughout the day. So without even thinking about it, your screen is going to be darker or have less blue light in the evening. It's kind of like the iPhone has this, but it's for your computer. What types of tips or websites or things do you have? I saw Christopher wrote, how long have I been doing it? But I don't know what he was referring to, what I was doing. So tell me what were you referring to, Christopher, and I can tell you. So any of your favorite tips that you'd like to share, given that you're all here with people also in the fellowship? Any quick tips, any quick hacks that you'd like to share? Okay, the Calm app? Okay, great. So I'm assuming we could just look and go to Calm app. You're welcome to tell us a little bit more what it does. The white noise one, I think, is self-explanatory. Great. Oh, how long have I been doing the 5 minutes? Yeah, if I'm honest, not so long. So that one I just discovered as I was getting ready for this, and so I've probably just been doing it the last week, if I'm totally honest. And I did find it incredibly helpful this week. So I apologize if I implied I've been doing it for years. But yeah, so maybe I'm curious why you're asking if you think that after a while I wouldn't like it anymore. But I found it really helpful. All right, any other life hacks people want to share? Oh, it helps you sleep. So the Calm app helps you sleep. Leech block for Firefox. Ooh, what does that do? Leech block for Firefox. Blocks Facebook, Twitter for certain periods of time of day. Great. Use Todoist. No reading of the news after a certain time. Oh, that's helpful. Oh, I know you guys can't see these. So let me read them out loud. No reading the news after work. Any list apps to sync to-do list, shopping list. So any list is all one word in that app. Calm app for meditation. Also use Twitter Lite on my phone. I like to listen to motivational speeches when motivations are low. Feel free to share with us your favorite people for motivation. I have some of my favorites. I'd love to hear yours. Pomodoro does Pomodoro timing technique, integrates with Todoist and Toggle time tracking. So Pomodoro is spelled P-O-M-O-D-O-N-E. I use Evernote for notes and lists. Can access notes through my home computer, through work computer, through a web app, the iPhone. Fridays are my calendar to-do list days. Emily, nice. That's great. No matter what, I take the time to update my calendar and make my to-do list separate from work for the next week. That is wonderful. I bet you are more productive than many people in your life. That sounds great. Minimizes gathering places for ideas. Okay, terrific. My voice is getting fuzzy. Sorry. Okay, thanks for that. I will see if that helps. I just got things down on mini Post-its that I put on the computer screen. They do not leave a residue. 30 minutes on a task when I force myself to switch to keep my focus high, collect all my notes on Evernote and OneNote at work. Eric Thomas. So these are the people, the motivational speakers that someone listens to, that Christopher listens to. Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Matsuez M, so M-A-T-S-U-E-Z on YouTube. I'm writing some of those down. Thank you. All right, I don't know who Eric Thomas is. And Les Brown, and again, M-A-T-S-U-E-Z. Okay, all right, I promised that we would end a little bit early, and I'm getting close. So let me just switch back here to the very end. So the whole purpose of this is to be present. And we're not just trying to be productive for the sake of being productive. And I wanted to show you who I like to be present to. So this is my family. And this is a trip we took to Ireland a few years ago. And we had a pet goat when I was growing up. So this is a special photo, special place in my heart. And one of the things we did is while we were on the trip, we made time for this book here called 300 Questions to Ask Your Parents Before It's Too Late. And every night we'd retire into someone's hotel room and we'd ask these really fun questions. And there's things like, what was your neighborhood like when you were growing up? Or what would you have changed about your wedding? And many of the questions I thought I knew the answer to, like I had visited their hometown, so I knew what their towns were like, but I didn't know what it was like for them growing up. And it was just such a gift to really be present and not have all that mental noise and just listen. And I will say with confidence that my happiest moments in life are always connected to being present and being in the moment. And I can also say that my moments of anxiety, worry, stress, they are almost always connected to being out of the moment. And we spin our brains in the past worrying and in the future worrying, and we miss the only thing that's really real, the only thing that is real, which is this present moment. And so I just want to have you connect to what you really care about, what's really important to you, so that you can be productive in order to be present to those special moments that we miss when we're so dang busy. So with that, any final questions, any final comments? I see that Michael wrote that he always checks the tomorrow morning agenda before he leaves work, which I think that is a fabulous idea. And Melissa writes that her rescue time widget to track what your top window is, figure out where all your time is going. Oh, great. Yeah, I downloaded rescue time too, although I found it took up more of my time to figure out what the point of it was. But but it does give you data. So rescue time is something else that you could use. Awesome. Listening to Alan Watts helps me be present. Hope he can be helpful to all of you. That is by Rashmi Snare. Alan is one L, A-L-A-N, W-A-T-T-S. Other comments, questions? Very helpful. Thanks, Karen. I'm so glad. I mean, maybe you're not referring to me. You might be referring to somebody else, but I'll take it. And he is great. Alejandro, I'm assuming you're talking about Alan. So we've got some seconds to that endorsement of Alan. All right. So what I'd like for you to do is, just to wrap up here, what's something important from today that you took away, some relevant takeaway? Maybe there were some things that already squared with your thinking, you agree with, you already knew about. And then what's something that's still kind of circling in your head? What's something that you would like to think about some more, maybe implement? So we need to capture, what did you get from today? When I click on the questions, it takes my screen down, so sorry about that. There we go. All right, well, thanks, everybody. Chris, thanks for your comments. Just thanks. These are always fun and helpful. I'm so glad. Karen, thank you. Meant for me. Alejandro, you're going to be smarter about your multitasking. Awesome. Chris, thank you. I really appreciate it. This is my last webinar, so I really appreciate hearing all of this. This is such a gift. Those 5-minute breaks, great. You're going to implement those. Could I put the last slide up, please? Yes, sorry about that. Indeed, right there you go. All right, I want to give you your 2 minutes on the other end. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here on a Friday. Thanks for all your time and attention. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for coming, everybody, and we'll be sure to share the comments on the event page next week. Thanks, guys.